Which aspect of a foreign culture do you wish they had in your country? I could really go for more saunas and hot springs. 100% sauna culture. Midsummer celebrations. Lake houses. Cooking sausage over the fire after sauna. Better roads and paths for widespread bike commuting. High schools where course schedules are built like college schedules and not really any homework. A focus on celebrating childhood. Up to 2 years of maternity leave. I could be wrong. Could be more or less. Guaranteed holiday. Universal healthcare and free university. I lived in Finland for a year in high school as an exchange student and I loved so much about their culture and country. Japanese style vending machines. I'm in the UK and they would just be vandalized. Speaking of, the one standard Japanese thing I'd like to see in the US would be the way you interact with servers at restaurants. Rather than the onus being on the server to check up on you every few minutes. You can just call out to the server when you need them and they won't bother you outside of that. When you try to do the same thing in the US it just feels rude. Like you're specifically pointing out to your server that they're neglecting you or something. Having a siesta midday and then everyone staying up way later and hanging out. I miss pre-K and kindergarten. Forced nap time is much missed. Edit. Thank you the gold. Shout out to my Swedish friends. Fika is a social institution in Sweden where people take a break from work for coffee and socializing. It's about slowing down, catching up with friends, and really not being so focused on work. It's the mindset that comes with it about self-care and not overworking yourself that I find so refreshing. In North America, coffee breaks at work typically still revolve around work talk that you don't get a chance for a mental break. Teaching a second language early on in schools. Edit. This is my first comment to ever blow up like this. I'm glad I'm not the only one who feels this way. Also, thank you for the golds. I grew up in Lebanon. At school, I learned starting kindergarten French and formal Arabic. Then English when I was 13. We also speak Lebanese, which is a language of its own. It is a dialect of Arabic. I can be pompous and annoying in 4 different languages. Cleaning up rubbish. I'm born in Ireland but I'm from Romania. They don't clean up rubbish in Romania. This is for the simple fact that there aren't empty trash bins to throw rubbish into. This is most evident in touristic areas like beaches, hiking areas and rivers. There's literally rivers filled with rubbish from tourists who don't have the decency to hold on to the rubbish. That's what I would want in Romania. I definitely agree. I grew up in Romania and there is so much beautiful nature in Romania and I don't understand why people don't protect it better. Work-life balance. Working to death is not the answer in an Asian society that always wanna win or never lose face. This is a problem globally. Really. European countries like Italy for example tend to have a good work-life balance. Probably because their households are multi-generational. Thus you don't need to work 9-5 Monday Friday. But outside of Europe, most countries have the mentality of work your ass off during the week and get Saturday and Sunday off. Showing the actual price of items in stores instead of having to add the tax on. At least in the States. That's apparently because each one sets their own sales tax, or doesn't have any. In places like Oregon, I guess for chain stores that would mean calculating and including tax into the price tags for 50 different places instead of letting stores add it on at the register. And customers would also be unhappy that things apparently cost more the next state over. Even though it's actually the same as they would have paid anyway. Take your F-king shoes off in my house. I attended an American uni that had a local campus in my country and the professors from the American campus would travel to our local campus to teach us. In one class, the professor asked us about an aspect about American culture we couldn't understand. Not taking shoes off in the house was unanimously voted as number 1. Being polite, caring for strangers as a society. I've been to roughly 20 countries but US Americans have been by far the politest and caring people I've ever met. I don't know but I have never felt so confident as in those 3 weeks. I have never gotten as many compliments from strangers, and I mean actual compliments. Not catcalling. and have never had that many people randomly starting conversations without being drunk. More emphasis of quality over quantity in food. A giant cup of watered down coffee is not as satisfying as a modest sized but decent coffee. A giant chocolate bar made with crappy ingredients that just barely legally qualifies as chocolate is not as satisfying as a proper piece of real chocolate. Make an attempt to keep public bathrooms clean FFS. More emphasis on public transportation like Europe. I'm from US. Close bracket. Edit. It's probably the case that not everywhere in Europe has great public transportation. But I think it's safe to say that collectively Europe is better off in comparison to America when it comes to public transportation. Perhaps it would be better to say like in parts of Europe. I'm from US and live in Europe. Public trans is great here. But so much better in Japan, lived there for 5 years. Both are pretty great though. It's just more difficult for the US because it's so much larger than Japan and Europe. Traditional Mongolian warmongering and throat singing. I live in the US and wish more healthy lifestyles were promoted and more accessible. For example, even if you're just getting a fast food meal, there are much healthier options in countries such as Japan. Rice, sushi, seaweed can be cheap easy snacks. In America, a fast cheap meal is mostly just whatever is at McDonald's, so fries, burger, etc. And the emphasis on getting the biggest, best thing all the time. It can be so excessive and wasteful at times. Edit. This video. It seems a lot more normal in the States to go to therapy, which I wish was a thing here in the UK. Obviously there is therapy here. But from my perspective here it seems like society only thinks you should go to therapy if you have serious diagnosed issues, when in reality it can help everyone from time to time. Also bidets. Never tried one but it makes much more sense hygiene wise. Like, if you had poop on your hand you wouldn't be content with just wiping it off. You'd, hopefully, properly wash your hands with soap and water. More self-awareness responsibility. I'm from Canada and everyone up here likes to act like we're God's gift to the world and constantly shit on the US as if we aren't basically exactly the same. And it's not just Trump. Ever since I was a kid I've been told Canada is the nicest most best country. Be glad you're not an American. They're all rude idiots. Double quote. The buttons at tables in restaurants in Korea that request a server. Wearing a mask in public during a pandemic. People in Japan do it if they have a f***ing cold. Not even a possibly deadly virus. A cold. And that's a normal thing in their society. Nobody bitches about it infringing upon their freedoms. Nobody says it probably doesn't even help. They just wear them to be considerate to other people. I've heard that other countries are much more generous with vacation time for professional workers than the US is. Probably that. Wash your ass. Who doesn't wash their ass? Unless you're referring to a bidet? No obligated tipping. Like in Japan. Almost all counties don't tip except the US. Talking to random people. Making friends after high school. Chill the FCK out. Moved back to the UK last year after a 15-year absence and it seems there's loads of rages ready to kick off at the drop of a hat. Been to some really chill and happy places and just don't get that vibe a lot on the UK. I'll probably get downvoted for this but it's since the Brexit vote and all the UKIP shit before it that a lot of people seem angry miserable. Ranked choice voting. Oh. And basic respect for science. Respect for educators and affordable healthcare. What about free healthcare? Germany here, good internet and mobile coverage. Australian here. Count your blessings. The love of cooking food like Koreans and many other Asian cultures. When I dormed, I thought it was so cool when the Korean students would buy groceries and cook food together in the dorm kitchens. I didn't see any American students cook or even use the kitchen. Much less cook in large groups. I think it's a special thing to cook for each other. My BF and I are both impartial to cooking because we didn't have a great environment where a love of cooking was nourished and taught. Really? Cooking is not the norm? Here in the Netherlands, not cooking is for special occasions. Narrow winding stone cobbled streets in the town center. It's all lovely and quaint until it rains. As an American, is it too much to ask to not have everyone in a one-upping contest on how shitty they can make their lives? My overworking? Just let me work the hours I'm supposed to, then go home. Work to live, not live to work. Cheetahs. We don't have them in Germany. Edit. Also Costco, give me your damn samples. More general societal respect for being literary, artistic, actually talented in the arts, such as a musical instrument, dance, sculpture etc. And well read, actual books with pages. Poetry, philosophy, history. Close bracket. If I remember right, in Israel the green lights on traffic signals would flash several times before turning yellow and then red. It seemed like a clever way for drivers to anticipate an upcoming stop. I wish traffic lights in the US would turn yellow and red at once when it's about to turn green. In Vietnam, every toilet has a small shower head on the side, so that you can wash it after you're done with the business. There's none in the US. Wish they had it. Stop sitting in the left lane, PLZ. Working anti-corruption system. What country has that? As an American, ranked choice voting, FPTP is complete bullshit. Wearing a mask in public when you know you are sick, not just during corona. More train subway systems. I'd love to be able to move across the country without putting 3,000 miles on my car or paying thousands for a moving company. Wearing masks, not being stigmatized. Bike-friendly cities. Free healthcare. Even we Norwegians don't call it free healthcare, but rather state-run healthcare. Not focus on jobs with solely the aim of getting employed, but rather ones where our interests lie. Problem is there are plenty of jobs needing to be filled that don't exactly cover anybody's interests, but still need to be done. The civility of the Japanese does not apply to foreigners or people of half Japanese descent who live in Japan. Independence. Like every other normal country. Accept same-sex couples with respect. Living in the US in the midst of COVID, and seeing how many selfish people here refuse to wear masks or socially distance. I'm definitely jealous of countries with more collectivistic cultures, doing things for the betterment of society to support your loved ones rather than only for your own gain. It's why countries like Italy and Japan have kept their cases fairly low. Going out of your way to do anything that helps others is so highly praised and lauded as a random act of kindness here because it is so incredibly far out of our norms. I really wish that weren't the case. Shout out to every single country that actually flattened the curve and didn't open up because you value lives over money. I feel like I'm surrounded by idiots here in the US. Universal healthcare and general care about social well-being of all. Clearly I'm in the US. Strong education system. Tips included in restaurant prices. Living wages for wait staff. Individualism. Religious freedom and the f-king abolishing of blasphemy laws. I love the warmth of my Hispanic side of the family. When I'm in Mexico, there's just this openness towards people that is not seen as often in the US. I feel like I see Italian families with a similar spirit though. Halloween. Here in Poland no one is trick-or-treating. Not even kids. At least teenagers are having parties in the woods. Those are fun. It's funny when you see your classmate, who is normally acting like a badass, walking around in a dinosaur onishi. Unfortunately, last year I had my period and was crying in my bed, but watching The Nightmare Before Christmas and Over the Garden Wall wearing umber and onishi was awesome. More attention to lunch. In the Netherlands we have a huge just spend 5 minutes to eat a slice of bread with cheese at school work culture. Affordable healthcare. You shouldn't go bankrupt and face eviction and homelessness because you have the misfortune of getting sick. Alcohol. Being an atheist in a Muslim country sucks. Not getting ridiculously drunk in public. I'm going to counter that and say, being able to have a beer in public or a glass of wine in the park with lunch. Annie, it's the Andean idea of reciprocity and helping out others, not only because you can expect help back but because supporting each other helps the flow of good energy in the community, leading to everyone being happier and safe. Getting a summer job during high school or junior college so that kids start having some financial freedom and learn some essential life skills at an early age. Where I am from, this definitely needs to be normalized. Everything from US. I don't care about racism and terrorism. They have jobs and heal. Almost no poverty. They are so well that they can't allow themselves to complain about silly stuff. Just look at any Karen. Argentina is so depressing in comparison. We have done the same mistakes so many times. Yet we don't learn. I would kill, well, not really. But you get the point, to have a president as Trump here. Great economy. Doesn't give a FCK about anything else. Hell. If he is so openly racist, people here might even love him more. That is how shitty the situation is around this places. Like many Asian cultures, the aspect of wearing a mask when a sickness is spreading. Fucking Walmart or Target. I have to go to 5 different F-king stores. Having a day to remember your ancestors. I don't like my family, but it would be cool to remember where I come from because I don't know my culture. The way the Japanese take trash home with them instead of throwing it on the ground. Being able to have a beer in public. Not be drunk in public. But just being able to have a drink in the park or on the beach. The Eastern Enchochondrian Elepols tribes have an amazing ritual where they release groups of their sheep into the night. It's a beautiful sight because they walk away and make bar noises. Not tipping. Even when it's poor service, I feel obligated to tip, and it just puts me in a bad mood and makes the experience even worse. It's not so much anymore. But in my culture it used to be that we could go to each other's houses unannounced. No one would be upset and people actually liked it. Wish I had that more in the West. More interesting architecture. I'm tired of looking at the same 3 suburban houses, offices, and tall buildings. I live in America, BTW. Community dancing. This is why I love Greek festival. The metric system. American drink refills. Sucks being charged a $3.50 for a single Coke in a restaurant. Sausage rolls or meat pies. I feel like America is really missing out on this delicious meal on the go. Japan's level of civic duty and respect. No one litters, everyone follows the rules. Very respectful to each other. Quiet. Doing the most sometimes. One time on base I was getting a haircut, weekly thing, and I had a bag of chips, opened, and a Gatorade with me. So when they called my number I stuffed my stuff under the chair so no one could steal it. Well, when I was done with my haircut I couldn't find it under the chair. Then the Japanese woman, all polite and happy, goes high and pulls the drink and chips from the fridge. And the open chip bag was folded all neat and perfect and had a perfectly cut piece of tape keeping it from unrolling. So extra but very respectful. I never felt so indebted to someone for that kind gesture. Lol. Collectivism found in Nordic countries. Their ability to do things for their communities and their societies is unparalleled, and I wish, now more than ever, that we had some sense of duty for each other in the US.